Yeah.
Hello, I'm Tim Lawton, MP for East Worthing and Shoreham, and welcome to the latest of the video podcasts I do for my Tell Tim website. I'm just going to do a bit of a spiel, and then I've got some questions that I'd like constituents to be able to answer. Today is July the 21st. It's the first day of the parliamentary recess. It's a delayed parliamentary recess because of all the excitement going on around the hacking scandal, the news of the world, Murdoch, whatever you want to call it. And it's been an extraordinary end to the summer term. Really fast-moving events in just the last week. We've seen Rupert Murdoch, one of the world's biggest media moguls, brought before the Select Committee in the House of Commons and then dealt a custard pie. We have seen Rebekah Brooks and other very senior journalists involved with News International arrested and questioned. And then it's extended to the police as well. We've seen the resignation of Sir Paul Stevenson, the head of the Met, and other senior police officers, and some serious question marks about links with the police and how the police have been investigating all of this. So it's been an extraordinary series of events in just the last week alone, and as I speak, who knows where all this is going to end. Now, there are some serious things to be investigated by the police, and those due processes must be allowed to go ahead, and then if people are found to be guilty of criminal activity, as is highly possible, the full rig of the law must come down on them. There's been a lot of questions to be answered. David Cameron yesterday had 2 hours at the dispatch box answering well over 100 questions from all MPs of all parties about exactly what is going on. The Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport was going to refer the bid by News International for B-Sky B to the Competition Commission, and then of course it got pulled by Rupert Murdoch himself. Now, we must let the criminal investigations take place, but this raises very serious questions about the nature of the press in this country, the relationship between the press and politicians and the law agencies, the police and others as well. Now, not surprisingly, I have been inundated with emails from constituents. I have to say most of them are identical and come through the 38 Degrees lobbying organisation, and as I've said to everybody who's contacted me, I'm much more impressed and I take much more seriously emails and letters from constituents where they've actually written it themselves and they've got their own good reasons for why they feel very passionately about certain subjects. So, future reference, always useful just to put your own thoughts rather than just press the forward button on a computer. But having said that, there's clearly a strong weight of opinion. What I've done is on my own website, timlawton.com, I've got a hot topic section where I've kept up to date constituents with fast-moving events. I've posted the Hansard reports of the debates in the House of Commons, etc., etc. And I hope that's useful. Again, if you think there are other things I should be doing, let me know. I'll be putting things through my electronic newsletter and so on. But what should our relationship with the press be? Well, I'm not one who's ever really supped with the devil. I can't think I've ever had dinner with any media moguls or News International types or whatever, and I try and steer clear of journalists, occasionally have a drink with them or whatever. So I think I can talk pretty freely, and I'm passionately in favour of a free press. I think the press, be it the television or be it radio or be it the print media, should have the confidence and the ability to investigate things that they see are in the public interest. But with that goes responsible journalism and having a responsible press as well. And how are we going to get that balance right? The print media is pretty unregulated in this country. We don't have a statutory press complaints commission. It's a voluntary one at the moment. Many people say it lacks teeth. Should we regulate the press much more? Should we regulate individual journalists? Will it be sufficient just to have far greater transparency, as has perhaps happened with Parliament after the whole expenses issue? It's much easier to get information, as it always should have been, and some of us who publish our information on the internet for many years beforehand were really rather resentful that other people were just catching up with what some of us had done already. But do we have responsible reporting? I can't deny there was a bit of a wry grin on my face when you had Rupert Murdoch complaining about biased reporting of what was going on at News International. When a media mogul starts to complain about media bias, then perhaps you know that you're on to something. So how do we get the relationship right in the future? How do we make sure that there is not seen to be, even if there isn't, a cosy relationship between the lawmakers, the law enforcers and the press? Parliament, the police and the press, the three Ps. So how good is a free press? Should we defend it with everything we've got, but how do we ensure it's a responsible press? I put some questions in the survey that follows this film there. Are we actually just in danger of swapping one media mogul for another media mogul taking over various titles? Should we have greater enforcement powers so that Rupert Murdoch couldn't just take the option of shutting down the News of the World? I don't know what may come after it. Should he be forced to sell it to somebody else so that we've got good competition? But would that somebody else be a Russian oligarch or a rich Arab businessman as well? And is that the sort of press ownership we want in this country? I quite like more of the press and media in this country to be owned by Britons who've got as a first priority the interests of Britain and British people. But we live in a global world. How realistic is that? How do we deal with dual ownership as well? Should we allow people to be able to own and run TV stations as well as daily national newspapers as well as Sunday newspapers? Should there be restrictions there? Again, I quite like your views on that. And then what do we do about complaining? I get pretty annoyed when I get reported for things which I know are complete nonsense, and I know that the people writing them, often journalists in this place behind me in the House of Commons who know exactly how things work, they write stuff that they know not to be true because it makes for a good story. Reading the Sunday newspapers, and I have to admit I was a regular reader of the News of the World, sometimes just to check on which of my colleagues might be appearing that week in the News of the World, full of stories about certain celebrities doing all sorts of things to poor innocent people they bumped into in a nightclub or whatever. Great expose, and then it turns out all to be a load of lies, but the retraction is on page 72 a few weeks later. How can we make sure that the press report responsibly, and when they don't, they are held to account? A small fine, slap on the wrist, usually doesn't count for much. Should they, which I think they should actually, be reporting with equal prominence and weight the real story when they got the original story wrong? If they're really blatantly abusing their position, should actually they be banned from publishing the whole paper for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days a week, or whatever? That might actually make them sit up and take their responsibilities much more seriously. Again, what are your thoughts on the way we go ahead with that? But of course, in all of this, the big elephant in the room is technology. And how much longer are conventional newspapers going to be with us? Hopefully for a long time. We'll have newspapers like the Worthing Herald, the Shoreham Herald, actually, who have a lot of trust by the public in local newspapers, and I think that's absolutely right. And I'm not aware of any telephone hacking allegations against our good friends at the Herald. Similarly, local radio, Splash FM in Worthing, I think a well-trusted brand and name that people locally are really happy to have in their homes and listen to, and they trust what they hear. But is it the same for newspapers? And actually, are we getting more of our information now from the internet? In a few years' time, will we have conventional newspapers? Will it all be on the internet? Will it be on Twitter? Because remember, a lot of the allegations that have been going around with this recent Hackgate scandal have all started on Twitter, or stuff that's been on Twitter is stuff that couldn't be written down because it might be challenged in court. So how do we make sure that having a free and responsible media means not just newspapers, not just conventional TV channels, but can also be extended to the great unregulated internet and others? Not easy, a real problem. But I think what's really important is that we come up with solutions where the public feel that they can trust what they read or what they see on their television sets, that the public can be more assured of the relationship between the press and the politicians and the police, and that everybody can be assured that when the media get it wrong, they are held to account, just the same way as their job is to hold others to account as well in positions of public office, politicians and others. So this is a real debate that's developing, and I think one good thing that's come out of this whole scandal, and goodness knows where it's going to end, as I say, is we can at last have a grown-up debate about the sort of press, the sort of reporting and media coverage we should have and deserve in this country. So your thoughts will really help me play a part in that debate. I put some questions down here. As always, if you want to give longer answers, do. If you want to touch on areas that I haven't touched on in this short video, please do, because your thoughts are important and they really help me do my job to represent you better in Parliament. So write your answers down, send them to me through the Tell Tim website, and I'm really grateful for your time.